I feel like in the 70s, you'd see a lot of barricading of doors. You know, do you know what I'm talking about? That's something you do not see. People aren't like 1 out of 5 70s films got someone putting something in front of the doorknob.
No, this is like a too Ottoman.
I know.
Like effort on the part of Falk.
Yeah.
Motherfucking goddamn orange peel beef.
We are back. We're back, baby. It's 1 fucking hour time. Of course, the show where we talk about one goddamn movie and just have 1 fucking hour to do it. I'm Evan Husney. To my left, who do we got over there? We got Brady Corbet to my left. What's going on? I'm sorry, Tom. Big T. Tom Fitzgerald.
Oh, hi.
What's going on, man?
Bob Duato.
God, it's been a long time since we've done this. To my right, we got Mr. Marcus Herring. Marcus, welcome back. We're back.
It's so long that you forgot my name. That's how long it's been.
did. Marcus. Yeah. Marcus. That's right. Marcus.
It's good to be back. I need to blow off the post-holiday, crash blues. So yeah, it's good to be back.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. It's been a while, guys. Sorry for the delay. We were going to record
but not
this.
really. It's the holidays.
Well,
so that happens all over the place.
No, it does. But we were going to record this, if you remember, before the holidays. We were going to try to get this in. I got deathly ill for like a week. I got sick. Then, Tom, you came here. Marcus, you went somewhere else. And then, Tom, you got sick. And then and then we couldn't make it happen. So this is the first opportunity we've had. So thank you for bearing with us and the delay and the holidays and everything. But we're here to start off, 2025, guys. Happy New Year.
Yeah, here we go.
Everybody. New Year. And we got a bunch of stuff lined up. We've been brainstorming and talking about what this year is going to look like, what we're going to do. So no, we're not slowing down now. So I don't want you to think that. So there's a lot of stuff coming. I'm very excited. Tom, it was great. Tom came here. When we weren't sick, we looked at, we went to record stores and hung out, and we saw some movies, which maybe we'll address at some point. We did watch most of David, by the way. David
was good stuff.
Yeah, we got to do David at some point on the show. Tom, what do you think?
That'll be debated. There's pros and cons to David. But no, we saw Wild Style on 35 millimeter film.
We did.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that was really cool. An anthology film archive. That's a very nice, rare, special treat.
We did. So that was very cool. So, but anyway, let's start getting into the show tonight. Of course, we're talking about episode 123 for the show, and it is 1 fucking hour on Mikey and Nicky is what we're doing tonight. Elaine May's film from 1976. Very excited about that. It's been on the to-do list, I think, for us for a very long time. But before we get into that, guys, I wanted to just give a quick shout out to the 1 fucking hour Patreon. Patreon.com/1 fucking hour is where you can sign up. It's the best way to support the show if you like the show and like what we're doing. You like hearing us talk about movies. You want to hear us talk about more about movies. Get up on the Patreon. You get access to all of our bonus eps, 24-hour early access to all the episodes. We've done audio commentaries. Recently, guys, we dropped our Beatles show and tell episode.
Oh, brother.
Which was super fun, right? I mean, we went super deep on rare clips.
It was Cure and Fab and all that stuff.
It was great. We went super deep. Rare clips, rare vids, tracks, sharing objects. It was really cool. So if you want to check that, the only way to watch that is up in the Patreon, or if you're on YouTube and you go to our YouTube homepage, find the join button, click that. $5 a month, same perks, same benefits, just like the Patreon, and you get early access and access to all of our bonus episodes. So we appreciate everybody who signed up thus far. We also have a little group chat up on the Patreon right now, which has been very fun. hearing listeners chime in and, what they want us to cover in the new year and everything else. So if you want to interact with all that shit, get up on the Patreon. We're up all in that chat as well. So patreon.com/onefuckinghour. All right, guys. Good stuff. Are you ready to get into this flick or what?
Yeah.
All right, cool. I'm going to, let's see, let me get the clock here set. And stay tuned because we're going to talk about what we're doing next week and the week after. So some teases there for what's coming in, just for the rest of January. So very excited about that. Okay, so here comes the clock. Time to get into Mikey and Nicky. Here we go. And all right, everybody. So, okay. I'm going to read, of course, the plot synopsis to start out. This is from the Criterion edition of the film. Great transfer. Love the heavy grain in this, the way that looks, too. It's very awesome. All right. Elaine May crafted a gangster film like no other in the nocturnal odyssey Mikey and Nicky, capitalizing on the chemistry between frequent collaborators John Cassavetes and Peter Falk by casting them together as small-time mobsters whose lifelong relationship has turned sour. Set over the course of one night, this restless drama finds Nicky, played by Cassavetes, holed up in a hotel after the boss he stole money from puts a hit out on him. Terrified, he calls on Mikey, played by Peter Falk, the one person he thinks can save him. Scripted to match the live wire energy of its stars, alongside supporting players Ned Beatty. Do you guys say Beatty or Betty? Ned Beatty?
I say Beatty for
You're
some
Beatty?
reason.
Okay, Ned.
Might be wrong.
Ned-
Like bait.
Ned,
Like
Ned Beatty.
frozen bait. Beatty. But it might be wrong.
Okay. Ned Beatty, Joyce Van Patten, and Carol Grace. And inspired by real-life characters from May's own childhood, which we'll get into, I'm sure, this unbridled portrait of male friendship turned tragic is an unsung masterpiece of American cinema. All right, so that's Mikey and Nicky. And I think kind of the headline here for me on this film, I've always been a big fan of this movie. I found it incredibly inspiring, just in how loose it is, how like just manic and fun the performances are, and how it captures just a very lived-in quality. There's a lot of like for example, like in the first 15 minutes of the movie, you see like Peter Falk like slip on the floor like in mid scene, and that's something that obviously must have been just in an accident, but it gives a life and an energy to the movie that a lot of the movies don't have, which is really cool. But the headline for me is this sort of feels like, because Cassavetes was going strong up until this point. He had done Husbands, which is like Cassavetes' overload. He had done Faces, of course, Shadows. And this film feels like she's kind of doing a revision of the sort of Cassavetes isms. And what's cool, though, is it does kind of share more of a POV from a woman, I think, looking at these crazy, Tom, as you said earlier, man-baby characters.
Oh, yeah. Or as Pauline Kael called it always, she didn't like Cassavetes so much. But
right. Famously.
The macho clown vibe. That term always stays with me. Like once in a while I see a film and there's a character and I go, that's one of those macho clowns. And that happened when I rewatched this one, and it's a good, it's I'm not quite sure where she's coming from, but I think it is apt in a way. It's descriptive, I think, at the very least. Macho clowns. And yes, and Cassavetes traffics in that stuff, especially in something like Husbands. And like you're saying, it's funny to see an outside person, and for
especially a woman, I think too.
Especially a woman, I guess, if that does add up to anything. Yeah, the perspective on the boys' club of macho clown stuff like Husbands.
Yeah,
fascinating.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting too because at the time, like when she made this film, and it was a very unexpected film for her to make, and I think a lot of people were critical of her doing this because of the way that women are portrayed in this film. They found that to be quite shocking. But the thing is which we'll I'm sure get into, I've mentioned already, is this film is sort of based on what she grew up around. I mean, Elaine May's parents were sort of connected, to small-time mafioso criminal underworld people. And so she grew up around these people, small-time mob folks. And I guess it was at one point, her brother had told her a story that he had known as a fact about a hitman that had tried to kill his best friend. And that was served as the inspiration for this. But the treatment of those female characters is that's authentic to what she's noticed and saw and experienced.
Yeah, okay.
So that is true.
I also saw an interview where she said she knew the widow of the Mikey character.
Oh, wow.
But in the same interview, so they asked her some question about like, what was going through your mind when you cast, Peter Falk or whatever? And, she's like, I don't know. She's like, I don't know. No one remembers what was going through their mind. When you go back and write your autobiography, then you can kind of make up what happened in retrospect.
Right.
So,
right.
Who knows?
Right. But but in just going back to the preamble here, Peter and Cassavetes, their performances, as I said, so lived in, and the fact that they are such close friends, and this film plays off of their natural chemistry, that they have with each other, and they have, just the incredible facials they make throughout this movie when they're not even delivering dialogue, and it's very fun to watch one of them kind of do something, performance wise, and then the other sort of running with it. And there's that trust that those two actors have. And I just find that very inspiring. Like, you just have these two very eccentric guys, like in their own right in real life. And that's kind of just, coming through on this. And it seems like they're having a ball, kind of playing off of each other. And I really find that to be pretty fun, in terms of watching this. And I do sort of feel that it's a lost art, this idea of like, the way that she also looks at her characters. And, they are scoundrels and they are despicable people and they do despicable things in this film. But she also depicts them with such a sense of humor and like reverence and love almost for these flawed characters. And I do think that's a lost art in writing and films today. And the fact that she's more interested in capturing sort of the underlying emotional reality of a scene rather than, focusing on flashy, style or whatever. I think that's really cool. So I appreciate the hell out of this movie.
Right. I think she wrote it as a one-act play when she was at university originally, right? So
yeah,
you could see this as being kind of like a really sophisticated, like shooting a one-act play in a really sophisticated way,
Totally. Yeah, and it's famous for that, Marcus, to bring it up. I mean, it's infamous rather, that this film, holds almost a record of shooting 1.4 million feet of film for its production. And just for comparison, a normal 2-hour feature is usually 11,000 feet. So the metrics of that are crazy.
Right. Well, the famous line is that she shot more film than it took to make Gone with the Wind.
Exactly.
There you go.
And boy, does it not show.
Yeah, I know it doesn't. It's so weird.
And that's the thing. It's kind of unwieldy because that was actually, I'm glad you said that, because it was my takeaway when I first saw it years ago. Was it took so much, not just rolls of film, but like all this effort. And it took forever to make, years of shooting
to edit,
and it's such a small film that it feels almost like the fact of that on paper feels like something was wrong here, like in its birth and its in the afterbirth. It's like there's a neurosis to this because it feels almost like these kind of magnolias that we've talked about in the past. These magnolias being, you make a big film, everybody loves it, Boogie Nights. And then you get to do whatever you want. You make you make Magnolia, or you make 1941 after you make Jaws, So it feels like it's small scale. It's not 1941. It's like it's almost like an inverted 1941 in the sense of it being a one-act play that could be just two characters in a motel room. But it was. I think that. And I guess these all sound like criticisms, but they're just observations. It's I feel like I just got this sense as I was watching it for the second time ever that I feel like she got lost in the middle of this and lost her way and lost the confidence in the power of what she committed to, which was those two actors and their performances. And I think she felt like she kept investigating. Is there more? Is there more? Can I get more from them? Like, where is it? And it's like digging. And it's like, the mashed potatoes, and then she just finds the plate at the end. You know?
Right.
So there's something. I don't know if that's the metaphor anybody's ever used, but it's just like it's like there's something, and I find it not kind of exhilarating. I feel that it's someone who did get in over their skis, as they say, like a little lost. And I think, and all I'm saying is the evidence is in how unwieldy a film that's so small should be, as they call, like an inverted pyramid.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, there's two things.
You know what I'm saying? It's like a pyramid on its top down. You know.
Well, there's two things. It's like, to use the Magnolia comparison, which I didn't think of, but it's interesting because, you know, Boogie Nights, as we said in the Boogie Nights episode we did, shout out in the archives, is that Boogie Nights is sort of a doing a big film, like in terms of the scope of the story, in a small way. Magnolia is doing a small story, but with the scope of a big film, right? They're inverted in that way. Right. And this is kind of like that, you know, it's the idea of going very big for a very small film and a small story. I mean, this is very low to the ground storytelling. It's, we're talking small time crooks. These guys aren't, Scarface, these are the bottom of the, these are the capos, underlings, or whatever, who are, doing
like
very bag men doing low level shit, which I love. I love playing in that lower stakes world. But it's also the combination of the style in which, she wanted to capture these performances. It was for the sake of realism. So, she, Marcus, as you pointed out, she had started working on this in the 50s as a one-act play. So this has been, this has been in her mind for a very long time, this project, this idea.
Yeah.
And I think what was important to her was the idea of realism and capturing that. And so the idea was, in a verite sense, let's just let these cameras fucking run, and there are no cuts, and we're going to let all of it run, even after a scene has been played out,
Right.
And
can we talk about that? Like the specifics of what that means, like,
sure,
that's unique about this film, and that's why, again, there's so many rolls of film that were shot, is that I believe, from what I understand, she had 3 cameras rolling, fixed on them.
Yeah.
Not even doing takes so much as just like, well, this is the scene where you're at this, bar, and you're going back and forth.
Yeah.
Go. And the film will run out, and then we'll fish for some stuff inside that. And there is a famous anecdote, maybe you guys read that, where there was a point where both the actors walked off, and the 3 cameras were still rolling. So the cameraman just said, "Cut," and she got very angry. She said, "How dare you? I'm the director. We say cut." And she said, "Those guys might walk back into frame." Yeah,
I love that.
So, and it's But that's a little bit. I just actually, maybe to explain this point in her career, I'm sorry for mentioning the whole Magnolia thing, but she had a big hit with The Heartbreak Kid.
Yeah,
in 1972.
Love it.
The year before this film's before Mikey and Nicky started production, she had a huge film, Oscar wins, and critical and box office hit. So she's coming off her Boogie Nights.
But she was already a super famous person in the world,
and that too,
anyway, right?
And that too. Yeah.
But I mean, as far as but as a director, which is also really crazy and rare, she's a successful female director, and this, it's still a big deal. So yeah, I'm just saying that I think maybe she had some imposter syndrominess, and was like, boy, this isn't feeling like this is going to be the Heartbreak Kid again. Like the magic of it, because everything kind of fell into place, like the script, the high concept script, the performances, and it's funny and sad. And I think there is a stronger script with the Heartbreak Kid. And, I think that she maybe sensed that there was something, she wasn't going to repeat. She wasn't going to have a success like she had, which it happens to people when they do the big movie. And then they are the sophomore film problem,
The producer alluded to that too in some interview where he's talking about how because she had this big hit, and the studio, they always make this mistake, but they're like, okay, now we're going to give you this huge budget, but you have to play by the studio rules. You have this schedule you have to stick to and check in with us or whatever. And the pressure just went up. And he was saying maybe it would have been better if she had less money, but didn't do it within the confines of the studio, but do it more independently and have 200 days to shoot.
Like a Cassavetes film.
Yeah, right.
Like Mini Moskowitz or something. Yeah, ironically.
Yeah, and to touch on just, her being a female director as well. I mean, it's kind of shocking this film would come out in 76 and she is the third women in the Directors Guild, ever, crazy.
Right.
It's crazy.
That's
wild.
That's crazier than I thought.
Yeah,
I
it is
did not
pretty
know that.
crazy.
Wild.
But you can feel that sort of, for whatever weird alchemy she's getting at with the process of this film, you can feel that exhaustion and the overlong neurosis, paranoia, sweaty, whatever through that, for everyone being part of this exhaustive shooting schedule, especially the people who are filming,
which fits the story,
which fits the story. That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah. So it's kind of method filmmaking, which is cool. I do like that.
Sure.
I do.
Late at night, nervy eyeball sweats. That's what this whole movie is.
Shooting so much film feels like it affected the edit too, not just in like how long it took, but just like the amount of shots they use because it cuts so much. Just the assemblage of it feels like you're piecing things together from different cameras, and it feels kind of like it's very cutty.
Yeah,
and moves around a lot.
I know exactly what you mean. Exactly.
It feels like that decision created a ripple effect down the line, like
totally
informs how it feels, which is all these combination of things. It does make a movie, no matter like how you feel about this film, like whether you like it or not. It doesn't. There's not another movie that quite feels like this one.
No, I know
because of
all
those decisions.
Well, let's get into what you're saying. It's like there's a montage aesthetic to it, and it's very it's very dynamic. The edits, like it feels like almost every shot is about the same length. Like we're talking about all this improvisation, but there's a lot of edits. So it's like some films that have a lot of improvisation. They just put the camera down.
Apparently, it's not improv, which is
well, is that okay?
That this is a heavily scripted film, and I think it's kind of a something you would assume with the film that it would be heavily improv. I think obviously in the performance they're being daring, but the dialogue is right on the money.
I could see that, like in the graveyard. That feels
Oh yeah,
people say that. I mean, you can find so many articles online talking about the improv in this film. But then, I've seen an interview with her where she's like, "It's not improv at all. It's like you can't improv a film like this. The script is
okay. Well, that's part of
because there's punchy lines.
Saying,
I mean, there are snappy comebacks, and there is
no. Totally. Can I just say, there's another thing that it's a film. Obviously, it could not have been influenced by Mean Streets. Because Mean Streets came out right when this film started shooting. But there's this. There's a general interest that Scorsese's Mean Streets has, which is the classic thing of like old boyhood friendship in an inner city environment, and one of them is just really starting to fuck up. Like it's getting like it's self-destructive, and they both die at the end at the hands of the mob. They're like, okay, we've had enough, bad blood out, the system, so they get rid of De Niro and they get rid of Cassavetes. And there's a lot of scenes that really strangely echo. Again, it couldn't have been like, she couldn't have seen Mean Streets. It just doesn't work that way, right? I mean,
no, I don't think so.
Right?
I don't think so. I doubt it. Yeah. No. But anyway, I just found some similarities. Like I guess both directors are dealing with the same territory. Yeah. And of also like trying to be protective of the ever increasing self-destructive fuck up old childhood friend, which is. That is sad, and I like that. And I was unfortunately thinking of Mean Streets too much when I was rewatching it, and I was feeling that maybe that kind of had a little more actor restraint, maybe and it was encapsulated inside the story of Mean Streets, inside the film of Mean Streets, differently, and it had other interests. And this film feels, I don't know, I just feel like by the middle of the film, I'm wondering what is the engine that is keeping it going, because. You know what I'm saying? It's like the whole film is simply these guys having a long conversation,
right?
And I was wondering, like, are they feeling this is sustainable in the momentum of the film?
There's not like events that push it forward, right? It's them talking that pushes it forward.
Other than the hitman. Well, just the hitman,
Well,
he's like sort of unseen. Like he's not really propelling it forward because they just keep leaving the place that he's supposed to go to.
He's behind them,
right?
Yeah.
Well, there's a tension. Yeah. There's a tension in the idea. You have Mikey. You have Peter Falk's character is essentially old friends with Cassavetes, and they've known each other forever. But Cassavetes is fucked up. Nicky's fucked up. and he's going to come to his aid, but really he, as we find out, he's in on this hit. He's, trying to essentially, like, as I said earlier, based on that real story about a hitman that had to kill his best friend. He was ordered to kill his best friend.
He's leading the hitman.
He's leading the hitman. So there is tension.
And I'd forgotten that. And so I'm just saying that was quite effective and quite shocking.
Yeah.
And pretty heartbreaking. I'd totally forgotten that since I'd last seen this like a decade ago.
Yeah.
And I was pretty stunned because I thought it was friendship first, and he's just like, "No, man, let's talk to that hitman. Let's sort this out."
Yeah, and it's interesting because if you do know that or remember that on a rewatch or seeing it a second time, you see all the in all those scenes, you can definitely tell there's probably more tension in those scenes if you know that. And there's more because it's basically like the way I was watching it again, knowing that was sort of like, oh my God, there's this frustration that that Peter Falk's character has just trying to get the guy to the place where he can get killed. But then he's so overwhelmed by guilt and trying to do that he's also kind of babying him in a way and father figure or acting like he has genuine love for Nicky, and he's trying to just take care of him in the best possible way before the inevitable happens. So,
and can I just say too, like, this kind of self-destructive character, like maybe it's all for the best. He's so self-destructive. He's like yelling at black guys in a bar.
Oh yeah.
Like starting shit, unnecessarily. So he's just 100% self-destructive at all times. So my point is, I just wonder philosophically, it's almost like, and even maybe Mickey's feeling this, it's just like, this guy's so self-destructive. Like, let's just push him a little further in, and then he's dead. And then maybe it's all for the best. Like maybe he's happy. Like he's kind of suicidal.
Right.
And he has nothing to live for. He's a mess. So maybe just at the end of the day, like, what would you be fighting for? And that made me wonder, like, why at the end Nicky is fighting for his life and banging on the door so much, because all I've seen is incredibly self-destructive behavior. But I guess he does want to live another day. So what do you think about that? That the self-destructive element in him, that's the leading thing I'm getting from Nicky, is self-destructiveness.
Well,
so what is that?
I mean, he would probably, just to go to like what the movie's about. I mean, he's, he stole from his boss. He's committing that act. You could say that's self-sabotage, but at the same time, there's a reason he's probably doing that. And I think it's also like, you can tell, I think, with that fractured relationship that he has with his wife. I think that's his wife. Played by Joyce Van Patten, that you see. It's a great little scene, very, very Faces-esque scene later in towards the end of the film, where it's played very well, where you understand, like, their fractured relationship. She's completely over him because, he's basically got obsessed with this life of crime and this Resnick, or is that his name? What's his name again? David Resnick? Is that the guy's name? Yeah, David Resnick.
Sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah, the mob boss, and he's preoccupied his whole life by being this narcissist and going out and like liking the adulation and drinking with the boys and
being childish, really.
Being childish and having some midlife crisis of some sort. And so I think he's lost his way and he knows that it's coming to get him. But you can tell under the surface he does have some aching anxiety, paranoia, because a huge driving factor too is that he has these ulcers, in the beginning of the film where, Mikey takes care of him, which is, I think, very funny. And that whole scene,
all the milk stuff
is incredible. Yeah. I do want to
I love
talk
the milk
about
stuff,
that.
the cream at the cafe.
It's incredible.
You give me that in 30 seconds, you hear me, or I'll kill you. Okay, sir. Because I'm crazy. Okay. Now give it to me. Yes, sir. Okay. Just give it to me. Okay.
That's just
I guess
so great.
Maybe just to analyze Nicky, just maybe my last thought on this is see what you guys are thinking is, macho clown, that term macho clown. You could also say macho child. I said baby man earlier, remember? And like what I was seeing as a through line is I was saying self-destructive, but also as much as anything is, it's the aging, like 16-year-old, some people are freeze at a certain age, someone could be 50 years old, but like they're 17, so he feels like he's frozen in like 15,
Yeah.
Like he's a wiseacre. Like, what's the next cheap thrill? Like, hey, I just put one over on this guy, and like, hey, let's not pay the fare. You know, so he has an adolescent attitude towards life, which, you know, will get you in a lot of trouble all the time as things get more and more real as life goes on. And I think that it's like not as fun anymore because he's not 15; he's like 55 or whatever. So he's probably depressed because his head is in a different place than his life and his body and everything like that. That was something going on there.
Well,
about
there
like
is. I think it's
an
like
immature teenage adult middle-aged man. You know.
You know, I don't want to sound cringe.
Uh-oh.
But so forgive me, but the kids would describe that potentially as a toxic masculinity. You know, sort of concept.
That feels like
you know,
right. That feels. I don't know what that definition is. It feels like a buzzwordy toxic thing.
Does
like it's just sort of, and it's become meaningless. But what I'm saying is, I think, for some reason, I feel like psychoanalyzing Nicky a bit because it's so much a part of the film, even as much as their friendship. Do you guys see that? It just feels like the behavior of 15-year-old,
right? Emotionally immature.
Yeah, like ditch party, like that's, and everyone else, like including his friend Mickey, have moved on. Mickey's got a nice place with a stable wife and kid, and like he's still contrast, like 15, right? Like, isn't there something going on there?
But there's also just like what, you know, wayward ego, narcissism, and like, you know, all that stuff too, and just the incredibly ridiculous and mean-spirited relationships he has with like that woman, you know, Nell.
I think it's time to talk about that woman.
I do want to talk about that.
Let's maybe get into that because I think it is significant in that this is a film made by a woman. You know, I think that's a really dark scene.
It's horrifying. Yeah.
Do we guys want to, you know, get in the anatomy of that a little?
Sure. I guess we can go there. Yeah. I mean, it's, you know, it does again feel like something out of Faces. You know, it feels totally. You know, and it's very disturbing. You know, this idea that Nicky is sleeping with Nell, and it's also that horrible dichotomy, if you want to call it, where it's like these characters are horribly violent to her, or they basically harass her for not putting out, you know, to everyone, but then also being physically abusive when she is, you know,
the
like to other people.
Thing,
exactly. You know,
the horror Madonna complex stuff.
Yeah.
So there's brains.
Yeah. So there's that, and being punished for that. It's really gross. And of course, you're seeing this set piece where then, you know, Nicky sleeps with her, and then, you know, Mikey's sitting on this little tiny trash can in the kitchen while the other two
great shot,
great moment, and then. You know, Peter Falk's glass eyes doing a lot of work in that scene for me. Just the makeup is his face. His face does so much for him. You know, even though he is great, he's incredible. But just, you know, that when the glass eye is looking forward and the other eye is looking somewhere else, it adds a lot to the humor of him. But then, you know, then he thinks it's, you know, he can, you know, sleep with her. And then
he's goaded by Nicky.
Yeah, he's goaded, kind of pressured into it.
Come on, get some. Your turn. You know, like a 14-year-old douchey kid. You know?
Totally. Right. So he's goaded, and then it becomes this disgusting humiliation for both, obviously for Nell, but also for Mikey. And it's just like, it just feels gross and awful. And then of course that, you know, I mean, if there's anything else you guys wanted to mention on that, I mean, it's
just a nice, long, lingering scene, and I think, I guess I would, you know, sometimes I don't like to think in these terms, but like this is a female director, female perspective. And
sure, it is. Yeah.
Could make too much of that. But I think, at least in this scene, I think that the attention to the value of that scene, it probably would not maybe have happened with a male director, or less so
probably
in the hands of a male director. And she decided to drill down on that and give, at the very least, give humanity to Nell, right?
Totally, which she has, yes.
You know,
she does confront
with the
him.
Performance and the lingering close-ups of her face.
Yeah,
and you know, because Nell is like, I guess what I'm thinking is like, what is Nell's deal? Like,
right,
because that's when I'm walking. Go ahead.
There's something psychologically going on with her too, right? She's got some sort of personality disorder.
You know, and she's being manipulated. She's being manipulated. So it's hinted at that she's got some weird energy that brings her to a dark place like this. It's almost getting like a Hubert Selby novel kind of thing, if you guys know what I'm talking about.
Last Exit to
Brooklyn.
Yeah.
kind of shit.
Yeah.
But like, no, I think part of it is the decor of her place.
Yeah.
Is a little, she's a little like frozen in like maybe being a 12-year-old.
Well, she loves the
girl
current
or something
events.
like
She's all about the current affairs of
well, there's that.
what's happening in the world.
Right. Yeah, but I like to keep up with Indochina, you know.
Yeah, right.
No, but what I'm saying is like her decor is very well kept to the point of being like a kind of a prissy dollhouse kind of thing.
Sure.
And you know, she's aging, and she still like makes herself up and gets kind of dolled up, kind of. And so there's something going on where she missed the boat. She's single, and like she wants to maybe also just be like 18 and like virtuous, and maybe meet the right guy. Maybe this is the right guy, you know, that kind of thing. So
yeah, totally.
What I'm saying is,
it's
what makes me sick about the scene is the manipulation of whatever her psychological malady
well,
is
he's
on
telling
the part of Nicky.
I mean, Nicky is manipulating everybody in this film. I mean, he's manipulating, you know, Mikey, even though Mikey's trying to kill him. Nicky's manipulating Nell, I mean, to a disgusting and sick degree. He's manipulating his wife. I mean, she comes in and he's like, they're out to kill me. And she's like, well, I don't have time for that right now, you know, or whatever. And then it flips and she's like, I don't want you to die, you know, and it's,
right.
So
Yeah, you're right.
He's working everybody, you know, he's one of those scoundrel guys. And so he is that manipulative narcissist character. And Nell is just kind of the darkest side of that, you know. But she does.
And
get
it is
to
the turning point where there's no going back from like you can't like either one of those characters after this scene, you know. Like, and the tagline for the film is like, you're not gonna like them, or don't expect to like them, or something. But you're kind of, because of the charisma of those two actors, you kind of want to.
Oh yeah,
for like the first half of the movie, but then once that scene hits, you're like, there's no.
Yeah, well, it's like they're sunk in our eyes. It's like, wow, you're both douchebags in your own way, but you both wind up in a moment like this. Totally.
And that is the point of no return. You know, because following that scene, you have my favorite dramatic performance moments between Peter and John is when they're out in the street, it all comes out. Then you kind of get the resentment that
the broken watch stuff,
the broken watch. But before that, you sort of understand, you know, Mikey's resentment. Like, he's the hurt friend, and he has all this resentment is built up for a long time, and he's letting it all out. That, you know, Nicky's made him feel. Has made him out to be a fool to everyone. Everyone calls him, you know, the Echo. You call me the Echo. You know, you say everything twice. You know,
I'm smart.
Yeah, exactly. Fredo, shout out. Fredo shot first. Shout out. And then of course, then Nicky does like just this fucking asshole move of just breaking his father's watch.
Here's your watch. There's your watch. Prick.
And I really hated that. Well, the thing is, it's when he says like, my dad gave me that watch.
Yeah.
You know, and I like 100% believed him there. He wasn't doing a pecan on
no.
Because it just showed, you know, in a way, Mickey's articulating it pretty clearly. He's like, you know, there are other people in the earth that you're surrounded by.
Exactly.
And they like care about things, and, you know, like they're in doing their own lives.
Yes.
And you're this immature, everybody with me, you know, macho clown, baby man.
Yeah. But it's really, just, I do like that choice, you know, in the script of breaking his father's watch. That feels like, okay, now I don't give a shit what happens to Nicky, you know?
He makes a joke. He's like, hey, you know what time it is? You know,
I know.
I swear to God, I don't know why I kept thinking of it, but there's Scorsese parallel, people like Pesciness, Joe Pesci's characters and stuff
Petty
like that.
Pesci.
Like laughing all the way to the grave, basically, at the expense of everyone, including your own life, you know?
Right. Can we go ahead? Sorry.
Oh, just the watch thing made me. When he was like going, my father's watch or whatever, it's reminding me of Pulp Fiction, and then my head started going back there about like how this film's about two low life guys, you know. And I'm not saying like this was Tarantino ripped it off or anything, but I just feel like it must have been one of the little bits and pieces rattling around his head, you know, when he's writing that script.
I'm sure it was very influential, just because, you know, the dialogue and you know, the realism and all that stuff. Just to rewind a little bit, I did want to talk about that opening scene, because to me it's just an exciting thing to see, you know, where you're seeing the energy of these characters. You know, you don't know what's going on with John Cassavetes in the first 5 minutes of this film. He's just like almost paranoid to delusional state. He's holed up in this dingy hotel room, desperate for help. He's burned every bridge imaginable. And, you know, but even though we're dealing with these two scoundrel characters, you know, and this is kind of like, you know, would be something we'd be more used to with like The Sopranos or Goodfellas or something but we're still, the way that we're dealing with these characters is, you know, Falk is being incredibly sweet, you know, to Cassavetes. Like open up the mouth, take the pills, and you know, here comes the choo-choo train into the mouth, you know. It does give the film some heart in that way, which I do really like. And you know, again, even though they're bad people, it's giving them some charisma, whatever you want to call it, interest, you know, eccentricity as well. And it also makes the betrayal that much more devastating. You know?
Well, there you go. Yeah, you're really set up, and that's why it was such a punch in the gut when I had forgotten the pivotal moment when. And it's played very nicely. It's very subtle. It's shout out to some of the supporting cast because
Ned
Falk, Falk meets up with where's Ned Beatty?
Yeah.
You know, of Deliverance fame.
Yes.
You know. Like he had just come from Deliverance
I know.
like the year before, 1972.
Yeah,
and shout
crazy.
out to our first episode ever. But no, so Ned Beatty, you know, and
he's like you know, not even getting paid that much for this.
Yeah,
like,
and he's complaining. He's like, only 5 guys work with me.
Yeah, I know. It's just like,
or something like that.
It's so low level.
Yeah, he's kind of low level. Yeah, low level killing low level. You know?
Yeah, it's
But yeah, no. So that reveal when Mickey comes up to Ned Beatty's car, I found that pretty devastating, you know, because you do think that I thought maybe the plot would wind up being like, you know, like this might be a high concept Hollywood plot. Okay. Like it's the friend who promises I will help the hitman, lead the hitman to my friend, kill him. Okay. Mob boss. Right.
Yeah.
So he keeps diverting intentionally the hitman.
Yeah, right.
And you know, like because the thing is, what I realize is, maybe I've got this wrong. Help me out here. Is that in the plot, they're not winding up often in the places that they're supposed to be going,
exactly,
or the places that Mickey's tagging.
He gets off the bus to go to the graveyard
because of the embracing the chaos character of Mickey. He's like, well, let's take the bus, get into a huge fist fight with the bus driver, huh?
Well, when you say Mickey, I don't know who you're talking about.
Mikey.
Okay, Nicky.
Embrace the chaos.
No, you are saying.
What I'm saying is,
you are saying Mickey though. It's Mikey.
In a conventional plot, I could see someone writing this film. The best friend, he's like begrudgingly assigned to help the hitman.
Yeah.
And then he's like, let's do this, let's do that, and keep diverting.
Right.
And the hitman's chasing a guy who has ill intent. Like the guy who's supposed to help the hitman is actually sabotaging the hitman, because it's like, well, let's actually not go to the movie, you know. But the film it's more about embrace the chaos though of Nicky, where it's more that they don't wind up at the movie theater, for instance, because
he got off the bus.
I don't even remember. They get into a fight at a bar or something, you know.
Yeah.
Or they go down. Let's go here. Let's go there. Because
they go to the cemetery. I think
the graveyard.
They go to the cemetery.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what I was trying to say. Yeah.
Yeah, that is where I watched. So I had that gut punch the first time I watched this film too. This time I watched it, I noticed that he's on the phone with Ned Beatty.
Yes, he is
at the bar early on, and he's like, "I'm going to call and let it ring 3 times."
Yes.
And then he's like all nervous, like, was that the phone ringing? You know, and then and he
you're supposed to pick that up.
Gets kind of suspicious. He's like, "What's that all about?" You know, and then then he leaves, and you know he's a little bit untrusting. So it was a little bit. This time I wasn't sure. I was like, was I just not paying attention the first time?
No, you are supposed to pick that up.
You know, or did we know all along that he was?
No. You are supposed to pick that up in that moment when he's on the phone. It's maybe a little subtle, but he is on the phone when they go to that tavern in the film, and he gets up and he takes a phone call, and then Nicky gets very paranoid about that, And then Mikey very uncomfortably tries to blow it off as it like, hey, wouldn't it be funny if a guy had a phone in his office was a bar, or whatever.
Like,
So if you're reading that closely, you would pick up that he's probably in on something. So I don't know if it's
he's
like
just
a hard,
buddy.
reveal, but yeah.
Yeah. It does seem like by the time they go to the funeral or to the cemetery that maybe they go to the girl's house, like they were supposed to be at the movies hours ago. So he has kind of blown off his mission. And you wonder,
that's what I mean.
It is very subtle. Whatever's going on with Peter Falk, we're not like really privy to.
Well, I mean, by the very nature of the circumstance, he must be conflicted, so
he is
playing out someone in his behavior. And I don't know. You're right. I felt like they were bonding even when they were fighting, and that, maybe
and
he would wind up like having his back overall, but no. And it's just, I guess that's maybe what I was responding to. It got very cold. He got very, all right, let's just get down to business. It's 5 a.m. Sun's breaking. Like, let's kill Nicky.
Yeah. No, but that is the whole concept. The concept is, because you do see Ned calling the tavern, and then you associate that with the idea that Peter Falk's character spoke to him earlier at the tavern. This is all what he's leading him to, and then the comedy of errors moment is on the bus when they're going to the movie theater, but then he's like, I want to go to the graveyard. And that's supposed to be, amusing. And then they go there and, it's, it's funny. But that's the moment when, Nicky might also know what's happening too. Let's not forget about that. Nicky might also know that Mikey is
I think you're right.
on this, and he's intentionally making this difficult for him too. I think that is part of it.
That's cool.
Because
this deserves a rewatch for me for sure. With everything I know now to look out for, because I think you might be right that Nicky, in his own stumbling way, isn't just being like an impulsive baby.
Remember what he says at the graveyard. He says, if anything happens to me, it's Mikey's fault, Mom.
Ma, if anything happens to me, Mikey did it. Hey, take that back.
Remember that? He's like, take it back. Take it back. Because
right.
Yeah, I mean that's all present there. In that moment, and also let's not forget what's playing at the movie theater. By the way,
I know one of our shortlist movies.
We got to do it at some point.
That's another film. Because we started this podcast where we're like, we got to do fucking LP, motherfucker, right?
The Laughing
Policeman.
What a film, too. Unbelievable. And that's great that the characters in this film are going to see that film. It's awesome.
No, I know.
Love that.
That's like 1 fucking hour heaven.
Yeah. So
can I just maybe go ahead, please.
Well, I was just going to say, just to kind of, we've kind of talked out of order these scenes, but it is there's some great stuff that happens after the watch sequence. We mentioned John Cassavetes' character goes home to his wife, and there's that great dramatic scene, but there's this little moment where and it just shows you what a absent asshole he's been, when he's like, I want to play with my new daughter, and he's forcing the baby to hold his thumb.
She likes to grab my thumb.
Yeah, it's like, hold daddy's thumb, and like he's
That's a great detail.
Thank
you. I'd forgotten that. That's
great.
Shit.
So good. Yeah. And then that's paired with crosscut, I believe, or shortly thereafter, the great little scene where now you have Peter Falk and Ned Beatty are in the car together chasing down some guy. It turns out to not be Nicky in the middle of the street, but you can. That's a great little dramatic moment because Peter Falk is like, "Let me out of the car! Let me out of the car!" Because he doesn't want to be in the car like when they're running him over.
Down.
Yeah, and that just kind of speaks to the guilt, of the whole thing. So I wanted to shout out that. I wanted to shout out the candy store sequence.
Dude, it's on my list. I was getting into some chunky set pieces.
Okay. Go ahead.
That was my big takeaway too. When I first saw it, the lived-in quality of that, and that incredible, obviously not an actor, a real clerk.
Oh yeah,
who just he immediately gets his gun out when Cassavetes walks in.
Yep.
to the 24-hour candy shop.
Amazing. And he's like, "Got any Neckos?" Or, and he just pulls out his pistol out of the, out of the hole.
Necco
there.
wafers.
Yeah, Necco wafers. My stepdad.
They still made
Necco wafers.
God, those are the worst things ever. I used to. The factory was in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and I used to pass it on the bus from Boston to Cambridge. Huge factory, Necco, and they made Necco wafers. It's the worst shit ever.
It is horrible, terrible.
Yeah. So but that's So that scene is great. It had so much lived-in character because if you think about it, it's like 3 a.m. and it's like, let's buy some jujubes. Like the 3 a.m. candy shop. The actor's great. More, comics.
Well, hey, wait. Comics.
Right, there you go.
You can tell this film is filmed in 1973 because there is an issue of X-Men number 84 in the background. X-Men 84. Isn't it fucking wild to think that like this movie is happening at the same time the X-Men? Isn't that just weird? I don't know. It's weird to me.
I know.
That's weird. That's weird.
Great scene, but what I wanted to get into maybe in the waning hours of this ep is the location. That's another star of the film to me. And when I started watching it again now recently, I forgot the location, and I was kind of defaulting on New York City for a second. I was like, wait, where the hell is this set? New York City? Where is it set and shot? And then I went, God, that is so downtown LA. That's got to be downtown LA.
Yeah.
And there's almost nothing more depressing than late night downtown gritty LA, even today, like right now,
Right.
Like,
True.
And because New York's all cleaned up, everyone says, what I mean? It's Disneyland, but like gritty bullshit downtown LA still persists. And
horrifying.
It's a great location. Sorry?
It's just a horrifying place, in my opinion. Anytime I go there,
I think they shot mostly in Philadelphia, but they did move to LA for like the second half of it. But shot like 2 months in downtown LA or something because of Peter Falk had to shoot Columbo, so they had to move to LA.
But see, but I want to ask you guys, what's going on? Am I looking at exteriors that are Philly or LA or both? Like those, like the movie theater. Like, where's the movie theater?
I think that's probably Phil. I'm not sure. That could be LA. That tavern feels so Philadelphia to me. It has to be.
Interesting.
And then,
but that hotel room feels very LA to me.
Yeah, I don't know.
But I don't know.
Obviously, the ending is LA, right?
I don't know. I love
LA.
just the way it looks at night and the lights and stuff, and just that special 70s. The street lights are kind of that greenish blue or white, and
amazing.
These days, everything's LED, or like movies from 10 years ago, everything is like sodium vapor, amber colored lights and stuff. I just love that blue green lights in this period. The cinematography is really nice, even though it's
beautiful.
It's doing different. The camera's moving the entire time.
It's
some
awesome.
Of it's handheld, some of it's dollying, and shout out to the cinematographer Victor Kemper, who also shot Husbands with Cassavetes.
Yeah.
So that also kind of lends to the feeling that
totally
a non-Cassavetes film.
Yeah.
But also he does, just to run down the list of other things he's done, just people get an idea. So he did Friends of Eddie Coyle. It's a future episode.
Oh, another short lister.
We got to do crime. We got to do a crime month. Let's do a 70s crime month or something.
Crime month.
Love to.
This summer.
Yeah.
He did Dog Day Afternoon, which is also in our archives.
Shit.
He did The Jerk, Xanadu, and Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
Hell yeah.
Illustrious
And Garbage
career.
Pail Kids, the movie.
And
I made that last one up.
No, I know. You know what's so cool about his cinematography too is obviously how this film I love I don't care if the actor who's speaking right now is not in focus, and just letting that depth of field just fall off. And there
are times like rack focusing in the middle of a shot.
I know.
Like,
I love it.
Like, is that them using the short end, because they had to
I don't know. It's like,
or
maybe it's just that bold. I mean, there's that scene where it's like where it's Mikey and Ned, in the car talking, and it's just Peter Falk in focus. Ned is not in focus at all. He's just a blob. And it's great. It's awesome. So it's just like those choices are great.
I heard Cassavetes shot some stuff too, because he just wanted to get behind the camera and operate the camera on some stuff. And they were shooting at night, like outside. And he was like, "Oh, it's enough light. It's gonna look fucking beautiful," And the next day they said it was just like black leader. You couldn't see anything. So then they got somebody else to shoot. But he was hands on because that was huge.
I love when the actors take the camera. Like Joe Spinell did in Maniac, and stuff like that. It's amazing.
Well, when directors act,
Yeah, right.
But there's another set piece that I find pretty, what's the word for it? Like pretty tension filled, and pretty much a big downer is the racial tension scene in the bar. And the way that plays out is really harsh and really ugly, and it does lead to more evidence of his self-destructive behavior, his childishness, and button pushing, provocateur thing. It's a very common person. There's like quick trigger assholes like this all over the place. You know what I mean? And this is that moment where it's the white guy pushing the black guy at a bar buttons, and it's very tense and it's played very nicely. It never comes to blows or anything like that. But I just found that a nice, harsh, ugly 1970s scene. You don't see that anymore.
It started with a lot of promise, because when the OJ song drops, you're like, oh, it feels so good that you're there, and then it ends.
Really harsh.
Really harsh. I don't know. But yeah, something you were talking about earlier about just the character of Nicky and like what's going on with him. And I do think it is interesting that you have this female director doing such a interesting portrait of like a profoundly flawed guy, a guy who's driven by, his lust and who's incredibly selfish and will do anything to reach any goal of his at any cost, and it is interesting that it's like, this is kind of an examination of masculinity, and all the, its contradictions and, all that sort of, the very flawed nature of these types of characters. So I think it's interesting that it's hard to kind of pinpoint him, because I think she is examining that aspect,
Right. I think for me, the key in using language here is, I'll be in defense of the male here right now.
Yeah.
Is because it's not a portrait of a man. It's a portrait, and I keep saying this, it's a portrait of a child.
Yeah.
All the behavior traits he has, you were just rattling them off. The selfishness, the lack of knowing, lack of even considering consequences. Like, well, maybe if I take a deep breath and don't say this, I won't get into a huge fist fight, which could like kill myself or other people, And so that all just keeps coming back to being childish. And I don't know if maybe you could say this society is male dominated, so that it allows and tolerates and maybe even encourages people to not grow into being men, adults, but to be perpetually children. You know what I mean? I think personally that seems to be, like, if you just describe it out like I just did, that sounds like a big problem, and you're going to have a lot of issues with that. And I'm going to get political for 2 seconds, but like I believe Donald Trump is basically has the mentality like a 12-year-old person.
Sure.
And I think that is the real problem. And I think things got confused when it was like all men, like toxic men. But I think it's between adult men and adult women and baby men. I'm going to keep getting into that. I think she had some insight into that. And I think there was a conflict. There's two different depictions of a male in this film.
Yeah.
Mickey and Nicky. And Mickey is, I think, even including having the murder of his friend happen, is trying to move forward and be an adult.
Yeah, Mikey.
Mikey.
Yes,
Mikey.
But I
it's
hear
confusing,
you.
by the way. Just Mikey and Nicky.
I know.
That's a very bold title, because it is confusing.
Sure.
Like Mikey, Nicky. It's too much key,
But yeah, I mean, to follow up, it is a larger conversation, but I think it is observational of what she grew up around, right? Like these guys who are supposed to be men, they're men of the streets, and they're tough, and they're criminals, and they have guns, and they're whatever, but they are babies. And I do think the dark side of the masculine situation is childish. I think that is the, people are, like, I think when you look at that sort of thing, they are selfish, and they are, narcissistic, and they are. I think that they're one and the same. I think.
Okay.
To me, and I think that's something that was the observation that she had about these guys she grew up around. And one thing we should touch on before the clock runs out, because we didn't quite get into it. Unless you had something else to say about the film, but I did want to talk just about the saga of getting this movie released, because there is part of that. So So as we mentioned before, it was shot in 73, but not released until 76 because, legal issues and lawsuits, several lawsuits and countersuits between Elaine May and Paramount. Paramount didn't get the movie, and they couldn't control her. And as I mentioned earlier, she had a really bad experience on her other film, her first film, A New Leaf.
New Leaf.
Right. And so they tried to basically take Mikey and Nicky out of her hands. Mm-hmm. And so they filed a lawsuit against her claiming ownership of the film, which, as I said, kicked off a series of lawsuits. And at one point, the studio sued her and her husband at the time for criminal contempt after he allegedly smuggled some of the film to a colleague to keep it out of Paramount's hands. And then further of the legend is that May even hid reels of her own footage so Paramount couldn't, get it from her and release the movie in some bastardized forms because she had like half the movie like hidden away somewhere.
Yeah.
But they were finally, it took 3 years, but they were finally able to settle all those lawsuits, which I think was a big part of the delay, finish the film, and it came out as a Christmas film in 1976. Which
for like a couple days, because it was like a contractual obligation level release on the part of Paramount. And again, this was Paramount's cut.
Right. Is it even possible to get that cut anymore? I mean, is it possible to see that?
Interesting.
I don't know.
Maybe not.
Is it much different? Is it a different cut?
Well, it's supposed to be. I remember that she got a hold of it in 78. She had screenings of her director's cut,
exactly,
and then that's what the Criterion release.
Right.
Oh, okay.
The home video releases are the director's cut.
Interesting.
Yes, that she screened in the late 70s, early 80s, and whatever the hell happened in 76, the Paramount cut. Might not be available. I haven't looked into that, but I'd be interested because
Release
we're all
Paramount
responding.
Cut.
Exactly right. No, we're all responding to her film. I was wondering as I was watching it, I knew that, and I was looking up how am I sure this is her film? Like, I was trying to go by running time. I guess hers is longer.
And so then she, because in 78 she bought the rights back. I think a former executive at Paramount and her bought the movie back from the studio. And then they released it to a more, appreciative audiences like several years later. So
it's still bomb though.
Right. No, of course. But, that's what we know today. And then, of course, she made Ishtar, and that's a whole nother story.
Right. Well, she didn't. But what we're saying is she didn't make another film for over 10 years.
Yeah.
And then the film was Ishtar,
right.
Which is our next week's episode.
Yeah. So
I do have a little thing we missed talking about the movie, unless you were going to
go ahead.
Okay. So the mob boss is played by Sanford Meisner, who is like the Meisner technique, like acting instructor.
Oh yeah.
Right. And, we talked early on about how 80% of this movie is just Falk and Cassavetes like connecting,
Yeah.
And you can see them looking into each other's eyes. Like, you were at my mother's funeral. Like, what are you talking about? Of course I was there. They're really connecting each other's eyes. And that is the whole Meisner approach, is to focus on the other actor instead of being all method and going deep dark into your hidden memories, or whatever. You're focusing on the other actor.
Oh.
The reaction.
So I was kind of feeling that Meisner presence, and I don't know, for sure, but she obviously, she cast him because she said she wanted someone who was in charge,
Yeah.
And the guy who developed this famous acting technique would definitely be command,
right.
charge.
The mob boss.
Yeah, exactly. The other guy, William Hickey, is also a acting teacher at the HB studio in New York.
Oh, and shout out just to the character actor stuff. Everyone's here at Emmett Walsh is the bus driver.
Yeah, he's great.
He just died, I think. R.I.P.
Right.
And he popped up.
Yeah.
He's kind of fun because sometimes I confuse him with Ned Beatty, actually.
I know. They're both in there. One
here
thing,
they are.
It was kind of an extended scene for him, too. He had a lot of screen time for Walsh.
One thing on that.
Who was also in Straight Time. Amazing in Straight Time.
One thing, Marcus, on that guy you were mentioning, the guy that played Resnick, right? That's the guy you're talking about?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Meisner. Yeah.
Meisner. I love that moment at the end, because you can tell that Mikey is still dwelling on, all the things that Nicky said about him. And then Peter Falk goes up to him and he goes, Dave.
I'm sorry you don't like me.
Ah, come on.
I'm sorry you don't like me and I make you nervous. You know,
Yeah, that was good.
taking the ownership of that.
Yeah.
And then of course we got to talk about the ending. I can't believe we haven't yet either. I mean, you know, it is it's brutal. I mean, you know, he's banging on the door of Mikey's house and with his wife, and they have a very interesting relationship, very different than the relationships that
certainly.
you know anything Nicky has with women.
Of course.
And so that's kind of interesting.
It's a brutal scene of literal violence, and then the violence of the end of Nicky and the other side of the door.
Oh yeah,
but with the sun shining and birds are singing at like 7 a.m.
I love it.
In a nice suburban house, very disturbing.
Yeah, it is. It's great, and yeah, just how violent it is, and of course, it's like there's nothing like you don't see this in movies today, or people don't do this, I guess, in general anymore. But I feel like in the '70s, you'd see a lot of barricading of doors. You know, do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
that's something you do not see. People aren't like 1 out of 5 '70s films got someone putting something in front of the doorknob.
No, this is like a too Ottoman.
Yeah, I know.
Like effort on the part of Falk.
Yeah, that is something you do not see.
No, that's a great. When I first saw the movie, I thought I didn't see the ending coming actually.
Yeah,
and I didn't think it would. I thought something else would wind up happening where. Unlike just his simple death, but right in the presence of Falk, audibly, and it was almost getting kind of surreal and dreamlike, almost like The Swimmer or something like that. Like at the other side of the door,
totally.
Is his friend,
Right.
like his death.
It's tragic.
He's like keeping it at bay, like stopping the reality of my friend and my friend's death from the door. It's like dreamlike.
Yeah, it is. It's and yeah, obviously it's tragic. This is a guy he was friends with growing up, and bam,
and he led him to his death.
Yeah.
All right,
there you go. 1 fucking hour on Mickey and Nicky. No, Mikey and Nicky. Very
Mickey and Mallory.
Mickey and
Mickey and Mickey.
Mickey and Mallory. Very glad we finally covered that movie. It is great, and maybe Tom, you should go back and watch it again.
I think because
it's not
a value.
It's not just random scenes. One after the other. It has a cohesion. So there you go, everybody. Very excited. That's kind of our first. I guess we covered John Cassavetes, in talking about Rosemary's Baby, but sort of a back doorway to talk about his work as well. So excited about that, and I guess we should talk about what's happening next week. I'm pretty excited about this, guys, because here we are. Like Tom, you were just here in New York. Full-blown winter vibes going on.
Ooh, was it ever?
It's gotten worse.
It's like
you left.
Oh, great! Now it's freezing wind. Cool. Like every day was a new gift of bullshit winter.
Yeah. It actually got worse.
Said the LA guy.
Yeah, it got a little worse since you left.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, so it's winter vibes, full on. I think snow is coming tomorrow, so
great.
Getting ready for that. But anyway, we thought we should cover a movie we've talked about a lot. At least I've talked about a lot on this channel. And I'm excited to get into this because it's one of my favorite movies of all time. So I'm very excited. And what is it? We're talking about our first Coen Brothers film on the channel. And it's going to be Fargo. That's right. So Fargo next week. Of course, very important to me. That's my homeland. You're going to hear the story about how my mom, after Fargo came out, and anytime she would travel outside of Minnesota, like someone who's working behind like an airline booth, would say to her like, "Oh, you sound like Fargo," and then she would break down hysterically crying.
She had to get used to that. That didn't happen, and then it started happening.
Oh yeah, just like that. Oh geez, and no, and yeah,
Fargo voice.
Oh yeah,
it's close to me to grow. I grew up 60 miles from the Canadian border in Montana, so there's a similar vibe there. Not on the east, on the western side.
Yeah, on the western side, but there's a unique darkness that only exists beneath the Minnesota nice surface that those guys tapped into perfectly in this film, and we're going to get into that.
Great. And it's star-making stuff. William H. Macy,
So good. Oh my God. So good. We're going to talk Steve Buscemi, Mikey and Nickey we're going to get into. So a lot of stuff. Stay tuned for that. So next week we're going to do Fargo, but then week after next, look out. Here it is.
Uh-oh.
This is a big day here on the channel. It's going to be. So. It is. It's always
it's birthday time again.
It's birthday time, but this is not just any birthday. This is your birthday. So.
Oh Christ.
So you're in store for something nuts.
Okay, pick a movie.
Yes.
Maybe just to clarify things, this whole birthday thing started years ago, like about 20 years ago, and the premise when it started was. You can pick a movie that we otherwise wouldn't touch, that we would all, thumbs down, but no, you can do whatever you want. Carte blanche, blank check. Yeah. Just as a reminder, everybody.
Using your creative freedom for that 1 week.
Right. Using, you have, every year, each of us has,
a voucher.
All three of us have a get out of jail free card.
Yeah,
and you can just do whatever the hell you want.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm mulling some choices, and could be kind of fun.
And just for the new listeners, the people who've joined us here, in recent history, Tom's birthday picks have been pretty extreme. More so on the death metal end of the spectrum, if you will.
Right. Yes, the Norwegian black metal picks of one fucking hour.
Right. Yeah. So he did. His first one was, if you want to check it out in the archives, was Jerry Lewis's "Cracking Up." Basically,
oh God, people are still talking about that.
People are still talking about that. That was pretty much unintentional, surreal anti-comedy.
Sure. The litigation is finally clearing up on some issues with that episode. It was a very consequential episode.
And then you followed it up with BJ Lang Presents.
Oh, Jesus.
Which we did live in the studio. One of the most wrong, weird.
That was a personal favorite.
Yeah, weird film that you only should ever experience on acid. And then, is this the third one, or am I missing
This
one?
is my fourth.
What am I missing?
My fourth.
Not quite Hollywood, right?
No.
It came from Hollywood.
It came from Hollywood. Yeah, sorry.
Which was me getting into, which was me shoehorning in through that film.
Okay, that was kind of tame.
Of the bad movie.
That was tame, but compared to the others.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, just it's birthday episode time. Get ready. Anything can happen.
But you're not going to announce it today because you're still mulling over choices.
I am still mulling. I have a little time,
Okay. So
at the end of the month.
Okay.
Put your guess in the comments.
Yeah. Right? Oh, if someone guesses, what I think you're going to pick.
None of you will get it, but okay.
Because I know what.
Actually, you might.
No.
The astute viewer might.
A close listener.
If you've listened to every episode.
Go back and watch all of the episodes over again.
If you've been paying attention and you've heard every episode of the show, you may be able to figure out what I think Tom is going to pick. And if you do, I'm going to Venmo you $200. If you pick it, if you pick it, no strings attached, $200, it's yours. So get in the comments, and if you can pick it,
wow,
right? I mean, but that means, Tom, you have to pick it then.
But now I have to commit
the first person to pick it.
The first person, not every person.
Well, but now I have
not
to
you, Marcus, and you're not included.
This is getting very convoluted. But it's just now I have to probably commit to what we're all talking around, the one title.
Why wouldn't you? But all right, don't say it because they have to guess it.
Okay. Oh no. Not now. Money's on the table. I'm not going to say shit now. Right. I'm feeling a little drop dry here. Some of this.
Sorry.
There you go.
Drop dry. All right. So we will see what goes on. But I think it's a good pick. But you choose, and if it works out, it works out.
So it's a week after Fargo. Yeah. And then we're going to get into a whole mess of crazy, high concept, themed runs of titles, and it's just going to get wild this year.
It's going to get wild. We're going to.
You ain't seen nothing yet.
You've seen nothing yet. So,
like the song says,
right? Exactly.
How does it go, Marcus?
Baby. All right. So I'm excited though, guys. This is going to be great. I'm excited for what we talked about for February, which we'll announce down the line. I'm excited about this crime series and some other things.
Hell yeah.
So it's gonna be fun. So
maybe Summer of Crime or something.
Summer of Crime, yeah, Crime Summer. All right, all right, everybody. Well, thanks so much again for tuning in and supporting us. If you're up on the Patreon, get in that chat group. Or of course you can become a Momin on the YouTube channel. You could do all that shit. We appreciate you guys. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next week. Oh, but I guess I got to hit it again because we can't leave you without your moment of Zen, everybody. All right, guys. We out, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Till next time, folks.
All right. See you later. Take care. Bye-bye.
Elaine May had written a script called Mikey and Nicky. I thought it was a tremendous, tremendous script. And Elaine and I thought that John would be wonderful to play in it. And I made a meeting with John. It was in the Paramount commissary. And I told him, Elaine wrote the script, and we would like you to be in it, and I'm here to ask you whether you'd be interested in it. He said, I'll do it. I said, John, this is serious business here. She spent a lot of time on this script, and this is very important to me. So I'm asking you whether you'd be interested in it. And he said, I'd do it. No, I said, no. No, why don't you ask some questions, some intelligent questions about the project and about the part. It's too quick. I'll do it. Well, he started out rather calmly. But by the time he finished, he was up on top of the table. It's on television, so I can't tell you exactly what he said. No, I can't tell you exactly what he said. But the gist of it was, do you think I'm like you, worried about whether or not it's going to be a success? Do you think I'm worried that maybe my career will be furthered by this? Do you think, blah, 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 and he got further and further away, and he ended up by saying, are you going to be in it? Yes. Did she write it? Yes. Is she going to direct it? Yes. What else do I have to know? Gee, I thought, well, boy, this is a hell of a guy. That is one hell of a guy. So then we sat down, we continued eating.
Motherfucking goddamn orange peel beef.
That was wicked, man.